So let's talk about round 2 of the Rugby Championship. Now, of course, I didn't do a video at the weekend. I was off camping with the family, so I'm catching up now because these were some really interesting games. Everyone, of course, beating everyone else once, and we have a brilliantly set up tournament for the rest of it. And of course, we're going into New Zealand versus South Africa, which is traditionally the big matchup, or 2 matchups, and it still is, of course, but it really does look like everyone can beat everyone in a genuine sense of the word. And maybe, dare I say, from a Northern Hemisphere point of view, does it put a bit more credence on the Lions beating the Aussies, in that series? Does it put a bit more credence on England beating Argentina in their series in the summer? So maybe that puts that in a bit more perspective as well and gives them a bit more credit. Let me know what you think. So I'm going to look at some big picture stuff for the Springboks and for the Wallabies, and in another video I'll talk about Argentina and New Zealand as well. But are South Africa struggling to evolve? And are Australia just a fly half away from a really great team? I think those are the big picture things I'm going to talk about. But hopefully, if you do enjoy it, please consider subscribing. That would be awesome. But the big quote after the match from Rassie Erasmus was, I'll go through it a bit here, they're trying to please the crowds by winning and playing a better brand. Now, that's a massive statement from Erasmus. It's not just the winning. He wants to evolve this team to play more rugby, basically, play some more ball in hand. And I was talking about after round 1, clearly that's what it looked like they were trying to do with Libbok, with Fassi. They were really trying to move the ball around a lot more than normal. And it is a definite plan, and it went wrong, and he's feeling bad about it, and they had to go back to type this game, and we'll get back to that. But he talked about them struggling when it's open and free running, which is a big omission. I mean, it's something we've always said, I guess, that South Africa are very suited to a direct type of game, and because they've played it for so long, maybe it's difficult to change, and that's what he's talking about. When I watch South Africa, I always say, I think there's a bit more in them. I love it when they get a bit of offloading going and move the ball a bit more. But of course, it's trying to find that sweet spot and, of course, trying to find the players he needs to do that. And now after round 2, and of course, looking towards the tours that come to the Northern Hemisphere, what does Rassie do? Does he go to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Don't try and change things and stick with the old strategy and the older players who are still largely doing a good job? And can he even nurse these guys through for 2 more years to another World Cup with the same style? Now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or does he keep pursuing to try and evolve this game and move the ball a bit more and start to swap out some of these old guard? Do they swap them out with similar type players or new type players? And we see these new type players, particularly in the backs, Feinberg, Magomazulu, Moody, Libbok, Fassi, definitely different sorts of players than what South Africa have had. Haven't really seen that in the forwards yet. So that will be really interesting to see which way Erasmus goes. Going back to the game, South Africa 30, Australia 22. Very close. Let's talk about Australia quickly here. And James O'Connor was the talking point, and we'll go to their all-round game in a minute. But the guy, he's not a goal kicker. He's not a kicker to touch. He's not a big restart kicker, and he never has been. So to say that, it's a shame it didn't go well for him, it's not really what he's picked for. When he was younger, maybe at his best, he was very jinky, he was very unpredictable. He's still highly creative, but he doesn't have that speed of running game now, and he still doesn't quite have the kicking game. So this is just something we saw crystallised in this game. So to expect him to have a really strong game under pressure maybe was a little bit optimistic. And in both games we saw that Nick White is still incredibly wily. I mean, that grubber for the first try was fantastic, and we'll look at the clips of that when we talk about South Africa's defence actually. But he is seriously struggling for pace. We saw him struggling to make tackles in the first game, and he was really struggling to make any sort of breaks in this second game, and then he got taken off. So I think maybe his time is gone. And of course, O'Connor, they need something better, really. He's doing a job. It's not his fault that he's been selected. He is still fairly creative, but it's kind of an all-or-nothing game plan for him. And if he's playing 10, they need a dead-eye goal kicker, which they don't really have. So can they find one in time for the World Cup, say? We know that Noah Lolesio is their best 10, but maybe even at his best, he's not quite world-class. We've got Tom Liner, who's a good little player, but again, I don't think he's the answer either. So there is a big area of weakness there because their all-round play looks pretty damn good, to be honest. Their kick chase looked dangerous. Their set piece against the strongest set piece side in the world looked very strong indeed. The danger of the backs, Jorgensen, the massive standout for me, looked brilliant as well. So it looks like they've got the full package and they can attack just by going direct. They've got power through Tupu, Skelton, as long as they can keep picking them. That's another issue. Tom Hooper, Valentini, they can make that gain line and play direct as well. And they can go to the skill game and the aerial game. And their set piece is good as well. And if they add in those halfbacks, particularly the 10 and a big goal kicker, I mean, they are taking it to the top level. So they are very close to the top tier sort of team that we have come to see from the Wallabies of the past. Switching back to South Africa and Rassie's strategy in this second game, they went much more direct, much more physical, and at their best, they were just pouring onto the ball. The big forwards, Deolandi, pouring onto the ball, and they scored their tries largely through that method. The breakdown was a lot cleaner, mainly because they were a lot tighter together. They weren't getting isolated. The way that Quagga Smith poured onto the ball for his try was great, and a lot of these older players are still absolutely doing it. Pollard, you could see, was just calm, not always perfect, but just calm, pulling the strings, doing a lot of kicking, putting the players in the right areas, making Australia play out an awful lot, which they did fairly well. But certainly it looked like Rassie, as the custodian of Springbok honour at the moment, said, let's go backwards, tighten up, and just make sure we don't lose another at home. Maybe short-termism, but probably the right idea right now to get that win, to get them going forward with momentum, and then decide where he goes with selection and strategy. Against the All Blacks next, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Now, another big picture observation about South Africa is their poor defensive alignment in both games. In the first game, we saw a big gap for the Wilson try, and then we saw a very narrow press defence getting bypassed by big James O'Connor passes. Now, the likes of maybe Moody in the back line looks a bit of a liability, to be honest, and it sounds harsh, but when replaying that Jorgensen try, he'd come across to cover O'Connor's kick, but was covering so fast, any odd bounce, would send him awry. And yes, the rugby ball does bounce funny sometimes, but that's why you slow down and watch it. And he just zoomed across and didn't really have much chance when the ball kicked. So I don't think that's particularly good, and he struggled at times as well. Then he cold dropped it on 50 minutes. So when he went off, the commentator said, he's had a great couple of games, but I'm really not sure he's showing he is the future of the Springboks in the back line. But let me know if you disagree. And also in this second game, let's have a look at the clip for the O'Toole try. Now again, brilliant awareness from White to pop it in behind, but the where is Fassi or / where is any deep cover is very worrying off this scrum. So Australia have an attacking scrum, and of course I'm not live at the game, so I can't see how Australia are lining up. But to counter it, the Springboks have a flat 4 with Colby up flat, and out wide, where Fassi is defending out wide. I can only assume they've got the likes of Sualihi out wide, or they're trying to put a taller player out wide for the crossfield kick, but there's 0 players covering in behind. I wonder if they're banking on as the ball moves across. No, the scrum half covers in deep, I don't know, but on the lineup, no one's really standing in deep to cover any kick in behind, so it was always going to be a problem. And then when they went quickly blind, Moody rushed up really quickly once again. And again, if we're being picky with Moody here with his defence, there's no one behind. You don't just rush up. You kind of go up a little bit slower, ready to back off and chase back if the kick's in. And when the kick goes over, he's just nowhere. He's just ambling back because he's completely sold himself when he knows there's no one deep. So the whole thing is really odd. The initial setup is odd, and the reaction to the tap from White is really odd. And we've seen lots of incidents of very funny alignment from South Africa in defence. So that's something they're going to have to look at, as well as how do they attack going forward. But of course, having said that, South Africa did win the game, and Pollard's kicking a big difference. Again, pinging the corners, the crossfield kick for the Moody try, and a goal kick, Deadeye as well, making all his kicks. And then a lot of the older players stood up. I mean, Etzebeth, a titan again, and Che was fantastic, not just in the scrum, but around the park. But again, the next generation of Boks, we're not seeing yet in the forwards. Some of those old guards still absolutely doing it. Maybe some slowing down a touch, but when are they going to move aside? When do you start bringing in this new talent? It's going to be a real head scratcher of when you do it. And maybe we saw some signs in this game of some of those older players slowing down. Deolandi, not quite as explosive as he was. Mostert, Snyman, maybe not quite at their peak. And if all these old guards start to go off the boil or get injured, or just retire or get too old at the same time, they could be in a bit of a hole. So it really is an interesting position where he goes with the backs and the forwards, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. That's not to say in the short term they're going to be incredibly strong and it's going to be hard for anyone to beat them when they're playing at their best, whatever style they pick. But even though they did win the game on 63 minutes, O'Toole nearly catches Pollard for pace and he just flaps it back and stops a try. And 3 minutes later, Australia have a 5-metre maul, which they score, and they've got a kick to take the lead, and it's a horror shank or a drag wide from O'Connor. Really, really bad conversion there. So they absolutely could have won that game, and they were still in the fight right to the end until a final mistake where O'Connor's pass was a bit short and Kellaway takes his eyes off the long ball and drops it and gives South Africa the position they need, and they take it really well. Classic South African try, big scrum, direct runners, no subtlety, including Pollard just taking it straight up, which he's done many times before, and Etzebeth powers over. So they were absolutely hanging on, certainly. And even towards the end, we had another couple of terrible penalty goal attempts, and the last one, after being kicking so badly, he still backs himself from 50 metres. And the coach and captain have got to say, no, that's enough. James O'Connor, really don't kick this one. Either give it to someone else or go to the corner. But anyway, it's a win for Rassie, but only just. Australia, maybe a fly half away from a complete side. Great for Australia that they can win in multiple different ways. South Africa got back on the horse momentum-wise, but where do they go from here? Do they stick? Do they twist? Do they go back to their traditional method and stick with the older guys? Or do they go for the younger guys who are really suited to playing a bit looser and wider? Very interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. That would be amazing. And I'll catch you next time.